Hey everyone, this is F-Spot. I'm going to do a really quick tutorial on how I usually edit some of my night shots. I'm using Lightroom 5. I shoot with a Canon 5D Mark III. This shot was taken with a 24 105mm lens. You can see the settings here. 4 seconds at f7.1, ISO 200 at 47 millimeters. This is my edited picture here, by the way. So we're going to start from the very beginning, and I'm going to assume that most of you know or have basic knowledge of Lightroom. So I'm not going to really explain too much on, what's on the develop modules over here. I'm just going to go through them really quickly. So we'll start from the beginning. This is what the picture looked like when I took it. As you can tell, it was slightly overexposed, and there's a lot of orange, yellowish tint from the terrible lighting at the valet. So we're going to go this step by step really quickly. I usually start off with the lens corrections at the bottom here. Since this is Lightroom 5, there's a new feature where you can go auto, level, vertical, or full with your perspective, and it'll automatically do it. So first things first, I enable my profile corrections right here, and then I click on remove chromatic aberration, and I usually do auto for my perspective. They usually do a pretty good job on leveling out the vertical and horizontal lines. So next thing I do, I usually crop my images. So this is my final crop that I usually decide on. Straighten it out a little bit. And the next thing I usually do up here is I start changing the temperature of the picture. As you can tell, that was before, and this is how I decided to make it cooler just by a little bit. Then I adjusted the exposure. It was a little too bright, so I brought it down about -0.3 there. Added some contrast. I took down some of the highlights. It was just a little too bright. I upped the shadows big time because you're losing a lot of detail in the wheels since it's a black and white car, which is a really bad combination when you're shooting without professional lighting or anything. So I just tried to bring up the shadows just a little bit for the tires. I brought up the whites just a tad up, and I decreased the blacks to about -15 over there. As for clarity, I added just a little bit. You usually don't want to overdo clarity. The more you add, the more HDR fake, over edited it looks like. So that's not really my style. I then added some vibrance. Usually I do vibrance over saturation. With saturation, saturate every color in the spectrum. With vibrance, it only does a select few. You can look up on Google or whatever for a better explanation, but I usually do vibrance. You can go between saturation and vibrance. You can pull both up or pull one up and pull one down, or whatever combination works for you, but I usually work with vibrance. So the second step here is I noticed there's a lot of orange and yellows that I didn't particularly like, especially orange. So I brought down some of the blues and oranges in saturation in the HSL module over here. Then I start working with the tone curves over here. You see there's highlights, lights, darks, and shadows. I just brought up the lights just a tad bit, darks a little bit as well. Same with the shadows. And this is the part where it gets a little bit interesting, where I start adding graduated filters. It's just icon right over here. So let me click on this. So I added my first one right over here. I decided to increase the exposure and shadows because I felt this part of the car was a little bit too dark. The lighting was a little uneven. So I added a second one over here for the first half of the picture. I decided to bring down the shadows, the highlights as well. Then I added a third one for the bottom half for the car, I decided to raise the shadows just a little bit for more, detail. Well, what left is the detail of the wheel. And this is probably the most time-consuming part, where I added brush strokes. Let me close out of this. As you can see in my history for my edits, literally 75% of the edits were from brush strokes. You press K to go to your brush strokes. You can tell I have a ton of strokes here. I'm not going to really go into detail how I did these. Let me just scroll all the way up to my history up here. Right here. Give it a second to load. So, of course, press K to see your brush strokes, and as you can tell, I have like, what, 7, 8 different ones. I'll just go over them really briefly. This one right here, you press O for overlay to show which part that you brushed over. It will show up in red. This one was obviously for the floor. I don't know, I just felt like darkening it up just a little bit, desaturating it a little bit as well. There are a few other strokes. One primarily for the white on the car right here. I desaturated it a little bit, brought up the exposure. A few for the wheels, to bring out the blacks and the color. One for the rear here. One for the rear wheel for the blacks. I even did one for the American flag, just to bring out the colors a little more because I kind of liked it. Yeah, this is just a really general overview of how I usually edit my files. The final product will look like something like this here. This is when I exported my file. Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, let me know. Message me. If you disagree with something that I, do, like, let me know. Let me know what your opinions are. I don't really do this professionally. I just do it for fun. So, one more thing I actually forgot. Sharpening or details. I usually try not to over sharpen the radius, the detail, the masking, and the amount. The more you do, the more it just doesn't look right. It just looks kind of unnatural. You don't want to overdo things. At least that's what I think, unless you're going for that really crazy HDR, super high, clarity look. But I usually try to get my sharpening just right. So if you can see it before, if you press backspace, this is what the original image looked like. Press it again, and that's what it looks like after the edits. You can also press Y for a before and after. Let's bring these before and after. So I don't know. That's just my style of editing. I just try to make it as realistic as possible. Try to stay true to the colors. I don't really do any crazy Photoshop edits. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching.